What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our Wednesday live stream for the 3M Open. Ended up coming down with COVID, but that's not going to stop us. We're bringing down this tournament. Was really excited for it, even with really the shit field that we have. But overall, these are the weeks to take advantage of, particularly when it seems like nobody knows what to do this week. I mean, there's a lot of chalk up top. That's really just a byproduct of the lack of options above $9,000. And as a result, it's resembling more of an NBA slate to me. And personally, I mean, if you guys know my background when it comes to DFS, you know I'm going to be licking my chops. Almost all of my really big takedowns, at least six-figure takedowns, both of them have been on the NBA side. So, like I said, I'm kind of looking forward to this slate. So I'll be able to give you some of that perspective. When we have so much condensed chalk, you really have to pick your spots. And that's really all it's about. You have to pick the pieces of chalk that you're willing to take this week, if any. I mean, you don't really have to take any of them. And then you have to really play the ones that you decide to take, really double, maybe 3x the field. That might mean playing them in 50, 60, maybe even 70% of your lineup. So just, it's a different week. You're going to have to play it differently because of those options. And like I said, it'll be a lot of fun to talk about. I can see Big Texas down there. What is going on? He says the final countdown. Yeah, I know a lot of you probably enjoy seeing that countdown on the screen as much as I do, right? This is my favorite time of the week. And obviously I love to talk golf with y'all. So let's go ahead and start off with a bit of the look at the weather. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Anoka County Airport, which, by the way, if you're looking for weather this week, this is going to be the closest wind station, so the one you want to look at. Let's go ahead and take a look at Thursday. So for Thursday, your typical AM-PM split. So don't get too used to this, though. We're going to get through in a little bit of a curveball when we look here at Friday. But in the mornings, lower sustained winds than what we have in the afternoon. But relatively high wind gusts for the entire day, which might make it end up playing flat. I still think the higher sustained winds in the afternoon are obviously going to lead to maybe slightly higher scores, but also the fact that the greens will be less receptive in the afternoon. They might be slightly firmer and faster. Now, this is the 3M Open, right? This isn't a major championship. It's not going to be a drastic difference between the two waves like we saw on Thursday at St. Andrews. But in general, I definitely would like the guys there in the morning. They're going to see a little bit of an advantage on Thursday, but more importantly, on Friday, 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Where the heck did this come from? This has happened over the last hour or two on the wind forecast here. As of a few hours ago on Friday morning, it was slightly worse conditions than what you saw for Friday afternoon. But now you got 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts, 25-mile-an-hour wind gusts at 10 a.m. Like, what the heck? The guys that are playing PM, AM in terms of their tee times are getting absolutely shafted here. I mean, that's just... I mean, it's a reverse split. On Friday, the PM is going to play easier than the AM. So obviously trying to attack the guys that are playing AM, PM should be advantageous here, but it just has to be noted in a field of this strength. You're going to get guys in that PM, AM split that go off. Now, who are those players going to be? Your best guess is mine, right? So I don't think you need to just only play AM, PM guys, but I would take, let's say, like a 65-70 split between the two, right? 70% AM, PM, maybe 30% PM, AM. Maybe 65-35, whatever it needs to be, or even heavier, right? If you're playing a single entry or a small field type of GPP, maybe you just go all AM, PM. Maybe you go all in on that narrative. You know, I don't make your lineups for you, but there's definitely an argument to be had to do that. I would definitely understand if that's the stance you decide to take this week. Personally, I'm not going all in. I'm playing 150 lineups, so I don't have to be that bold with my take, right? I can be stacking in, let's say, 30-35% of my lineups. That's what I've done at this point. 35% of my lineups are a 6-0 stack of the AM PM wave. But outside of that, I let my lineups do its thing. And we'll talk about a general lineup build here in a second. There are plenty of pieces of chalk this week that I will be playing. Guys that model well for me that I'm just not going to talk myself off of, but creative ways we're able to differentiate ourselves. So we'll talk about some of those strategies a little bit later. But from a wind perspective, you are definitely looking at the AM PM wave, just for the fifth time to make sure you guys are on the same page, being the advantageous wave. We'll go ahead and hop into the player poll now and talk through some of the strategy because, guys, it's going to be a fun one. Like I said, this is almost an NBA slate on the golf side that we're taking down. We got Jeff Oswald who says, I saw on RotoWorld that Brandon Matthews thinks he can win. I'm sure he thinks he can win every week, but he's a stud, that's for sure. What do you know about him other than Corn Ferry? He's a bomber. The guy hits the ball a country mile. I believe was hitting it like 355, 360 on the regular, the first time that we saw him on tour. So if you're looking for a bomber narrative, I saw a lot of people are kind of going that direction with their modeling, that he's probably going to stand out there. But for me, he's a young, unpolished prospect. He's $6,900 the last time I checked. At least if memory serves me correctly, I know he's in that range. He's not super cheap, right? Like he could be 65, 6,400 bucks. And I know it's a weak field, right? But it's obviously very much so an unpolished prospect. I'm probably going to wait and see on him, Jeff. But I do see a lot of sharp people out there that are playing him this week, and I'm personally not there myself. But I understand the play, Jeff. I know where they're coming from, right? The guy has a lot of potential, that's for sure. Catch Vacant says Ted Potter Jr. Hey, he's at the bottom of the projections here. I thought you'd like that. Yeah, he's down there at number 142, $6,000. So I know you'll be playing him, that's for sure. So McThunder says, I would hope that every golfer has a belief that they could win. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what I said, but like I think everyone thinks that, but maybe not Ted Potter Jr. Ted Potter Jr. might have lower expectations. Jeff Oswald says, who seems to be chalky under 7K? Nobody. Under $7,000, there's not going to be anybody that's chalky. I mean, I think the highest owned guy might be Justin Lauer, and he's $6,900. And the last time I checked, he was like 4 or 5% owned. I'd have to double check to give you the exact number, but nobody below $6,000. Maybe Cole Hammer also gets something like 5% ownership there at $6,500, but nobody's going to be chalk. I can say that pretty definitively. We'll talk about the ownership right now. So it's the most important part of the slate. The contest that you're playing in is everything this week. This conversation, it could go a million different directions. So we're just going to talk about a few of the top level ones, but you should be able to use this type of thought process to figure out whatever contest you're in, okay? Because the size of your contest, how much money you're putting in, everything matters when it comes to this conversation. So let's start with the large field GPP. If you're playing in a large field GPP this week, and again, my ownership is completely blacked out here. So if you want the exact numbers, you're going to have to go to my Patreon page. Around the industry, ownership is blasphemous. It makes no sense. So I'm not going to call out actual names of websites, but any of them that have like over 1,000 subs, which that probably narrows it down to like 4 or 5, every single one of them has ownership drastically off this week. And it's not like a objective, like opinion type of thing, guys. It's per facts. Okay, let's just talk about it real quick. Okay, ownership has to have a few things that happen. It has to equal 600 when you add up everyone's ownership. That's just how it works when you have six slots in a DFS lineup. In every slot, you can have 100%, like one player in it, right? So there's 600% to go around. Everything has to add up to 600%. Almost spilled my water right there. They're all pretty good at that. They can do that, right? The issue is when it comes to salary allocation. I have seen at least 4 of those massive sites with over 1,000 subscribers on them going out there, and they have a ownership when you add it all up, either well above 50,000, so like $54,000. They're spending more salary than they even have allocated, or they're spending like $45,000 to $47,000. They're projecting the field to leave $3,000 to $5,000 on the table. That is blasphemous. When people play PGA DFS, more than 99% of players will spend within $300 to $400 of the max. So $49,600 or above. 99% of players. And you have tout sites out there. Again, I'm not going to name names that are literally projecting for either above 50,000. One of them is at 53,700 in terms of their projection, in terms of average salary used. And one of them is at, and this is the biggest site of all of them out there, by the way, is at $47,100. That is the most moronic thing I have ever seen, ever in my entire life when it comes to DFS. It's because they can't understand that there's less options above $9,000. It's really not that hard of a process. When there's less options above $9,000, everyone on average has to be higher owned. So if you're going to say that somebody like Adam Hadwin's going to be 13% owned, you're absolutely full of it. And by the way, if you guys are a subscriber to that site, you know exactly who I'm talking about now. He's not going to be 13% owned. There's no way in hell that's going to happen. You have guys projected for like Davis Riley at 20% owned. He's not going to be 20% owned. He's going to be 30% plus owned in a lot of contests this weekend. Just, it is outrageous, some of the numbers I'm seeing out there. And it's like they almost want to talk their people into playing less of players. Like they're trying to almost spread out people's ownership. And I don't know if they're doing this to mislead people, but it really seems like it to me. So I just wanted to have that conversation. Understand that if you're not getting your ownership projections from somebody that can add up the average salaries and get it close to $50,000, and you're probably getting it from somebody that can't do it right. And by the way, I'm going to teach you all right now, whatever ownership site you have, it doesn't have to be mine, right? How you check this. You you take the projected ownership number, right, in a percentage form. So, right, if it's 19%, right, it's like 0.19, right, for everyone out there, remember second grade math. You multiply that by a player's DraftKings price. You put it over here in a column on the right. You do that for every single player the whole way down, right, all 156 players in the pool, and you add it up. If that number is $50,000 or within like $100 or $200 of that, projections are probably pretty solid, right? But if it's $53,000 or $47,000, like two of the massive sites out there, they absolutely don't know their shit. They're full of shit, actually, would be the better word for it. So just wanted to give everyone that power to do that. It's really not a hard thing to do. And you should be doing that before you even take anyone's projection seriously. With that being said, everyone's going to be chalky. I mean, a quote unquote pivot play up top would be somebody like a Sungjae Im. We talked about him today on the live stream. He's 20% owned. And that's like the lowest ownership. Him and Adam Hadwin are going to be like the lowest owned players up top. And they're both, what is Adam Hadwin, I believe, is over 20% in my projected ownership rankings. And Sungjae Im was like 20.1%, maybe 21% at this point. Has gone up a little bit. Those are going to be quote unquote pivot plays this week. So when somebody's 21% owned, you got to play like 35 to 40%. You got to play sometimes 50% of a player up here to get adequate leverage. It's one of those type of weeks. So, when we're making our stands here, I'm playing 0% Tony Finau. When I'm fading somebody here, I'm playing 0%, right? For guys that I'm fading in this range, I'll be playing 0% of them when I'm not playing them, and I'll be playing 40 to 50% of them when I will. That's an NBA slate for you. When you're playing the studs on an NBA slate, on a highly volatile sport where you get really condensed ownership, that's how you take down GPPs. Now, by the way, I don't do NBA content for a reason. I do not want to spill the beans on that too much, but anyone that plays NBA DFS knows you're playing like 65% of players and GPPs there, and you're really not sweating it all that much. Like when you're playing 60% of James Harden on an NBA slate, you're not thinking twice about it, right? But when you're playing 60% of somebody like a Sungjae Im on this slate, which I'm not doing, not going that crazy on the guy, you're going to really start to sweat about it, but it's one of the slates where you kind of just got to put that aside. It's going to be one of those slates for you. So you're going to have to fade a lot of players. And frankly, guys, I'm not giving anyone else in my player pool other than what I've touched on in content this week because I can't give you my entire player pool. Like I'm only playing so many guys, and a lot of the guys that are on here right now are obviously going to be plays for me. So we'll talk about Adam Hadwin. He has 2 top 6 finishes here. I don't understand why he's like the second lowest owned play up top. Makes no sense to me. 2 top 6 finishes. The modeling, but it hasn't been quite as good as, like, let's say, a Sungjae Im, right? A Tony Finau, or even like guys like a Davis Riley, of course. The course history is elite, and you're at a really shitty field, right? If you can latch on to one thing, it would be that. He's playing in the morning wave, which, of course, I'd like to see. Same thing with Sungjae Im, which, with that AM PM wave getting more and more advantageous as the week goes on. Another thing that I'm really latching on to, something else I want to say with the splits here. So we'll talk about Sungjae Im at 10 grand is the fact that he's playing in the AM wave is really advantageous for him. And it's really because he came from the Open Championship. The guys that are dealing with jet lag, you have to think, right? It's over there in Minnesota. So it's a 1 hour difference from Eastern time. So it's a 6 hour difference between where they're used to and then what they saw at Scotland. When they're teeing off at 2 p.m., if they're in that PM wave, it's like 8, 9 p.m. per their biological clock. Whereas Sungjae, who's in the AM wave, it'll be an afternoon tee time. That's not all that bad, right? Players are pretty used to that. And after his time, he gets to go out there, take almost an entire day to rest and recuperate. Whereas somebody like a Tony Finau, for example, who's playing in the PM wave, he'll be teeing off at like 1:30, 2 p.m. It's like 7:30 or 8 p.m. for him. Now, you're not used to that, right? Obviously, your body would be telling you it's time to start shutting down, get dinner. You're not really firing at all capacity at 8:30 p.m. Tony Finau could fall into that trap. So it's, if you're going to be splitting hairs up top, trying to differentiate between all solid plays, it's those little edges, right? When it comes to tee times, that can really make all the difference. We'll catch up on chat after I get off my soapbox talking about ownership, because that was important, guys. I had to call out those sites. Hopefully they see this. I really hope they do, because they need to hire better analysts that actually know how to do ownership for PGA DFS. And see what we got. Michael says, who do you think is going to win this weekend? I think Davis Riley wins. Zach says, what do you think about Thigala? Check out my Patreon page. I can't give you the goods on everyone, man. I'm sorry. Same Thunder says, I'm going to take shots on Hammer. Yeah, he'll be a little bit chalky down there. I don't hate the play, though. I'll tell you, I won't be there myself on Hammer, but I understand the sentiment. I think a lot of people will be there with you, though. Bob says, is this a stream for DraftKings, or are you going to talk about Prize Picks? I may talk about Prize Picks at the end. Just remind me, but this is a DraftKings heavy stream. Tori says, Cam Davis or JT Poston? That would be Cam Davis, but that's a close one. I like both players. Catch Me Can says, if Cole Hammer was named John Collins, nobody would play him. Exactly. He's got that name recognition. He played in a major championship when he was like 14 years old, maybe not that young, whatever it ended up being for Cole Hammer. That's why everyone's playing him this week. When he's played in tournaments this year, he's been dog shit. So yeah, I'm waiting on him. That's why I'm taking a wait and see approach, but I understand it. He's a high pedigree player, that's for sure. Let's see. Catch Me If You Can says, my comments on YouTube earlier had nothing to do with other sites. I didn't watch any other sites. Yeah, no, absolutely. I wasn't expecting that to either. It's just something I check out those other sites. Like I will cross-reference my ownership with other sites, but when I did this time, I had to laugh. Like I legitimately like had a laugh out loud moment looking at the one site that was at $47,000. Jack Fisher says, of the 4 players I've backed, only Thigala is teeing off Thursday morning. The other 3, Davis Riley, Clark, and Cam Davis, have afternoon tee times. Yeah, that's not ideal, man. That's why you got to wait until Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday to get get that information, right? Figure out whether there's going to be a split, because that really matters when you're trying to make tiebreakers, that sort of thing. But it's not the end all be all, Jack, right? I'm still playing all those guys in the PM. I still think there's a really good chance they could win the golf tournament, but any little edge you can get is great for a large field contest or a large sample size. So, the smart play, prudent play would be to take the guys in the AM, but you never know. JT went out of the PM there at the PGA Championship. Say McThunder says, yeah, I don't like that Cam Davis and Riley are in the PM AM. Like you're still formed. Yeah, me too. Like you can't get everyone in the right wave, right? Like JT won out of the other wave at the Players Championship. 2 out of the 6 players in the optimal lineup were out of the bad wave. So it happens. Happens a lot more than people think. Even like with the Players Championship, it was like a 2.5 stroke difference between the 2 waves. And that still worked. Isel says, my man Gsluke, always dealing it when it comes to PGA. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Hopefully you're having a good day there, Purple. Nick Mars says, so you're saying play Hoagie. That's all I hear. Yeah, we'll talk about Hoagie. And that's my boy Nick Mars I was talking about, by the way, guys, that gave me the idea when it came to Tom Hoagie. Yeah, he's the boy when it comes to that. So let's talk about a few of the other guys up top. So we talked about Hadwin, elite course history, right? And just to give you an idea what I'm talking about here, Adam Hadwin, I clicked recent form, not course history. Sorry, guys, if you can't tell, if you weren't here before, I do have COVID right now, so I'm doing my best right here. We're batting them through some mental fatigue. 6th place and a 4th place finish. That's what you like to see from guys up top, right? And Tony Finau, by the way, he's made the cut in all 3 trips. He's finished top 28, so you got to give him credit where it's due. He certainly has good course history. I think he's dealing with some fatigue. We'll have to see whether that happens. But yeah, Adam Hadwin, absolutely ridiculous. We'll talk about Davis Riley. Guys, like, I don't know if it's just like fear of missing out with Davis, or like I feel like I have to bet him. I feel like I have to play him this week. But it like feels like he's winning this week. And I hate for that to be the reason that I play somebody. But if I think somebody's going to win this week, I've bet $200 on them to win. It's by far the biggest bet I put. Most of them are like $25 to $30 because they're long shots. They're guys that are like 80 to 100 to 1. Davis Riley is like the one player. Like if you ask me, like, who do you think's winning this week? Like everyone that I've answered that question to, like a lot of family friends, a lot of people I know in real life will text me like who to bet week to week, like one guy. I told them all Davis Riley this week. And I can't say anything else. I really can't say anything bad about his game. Like if you look at every single metric for Davis Riley, it's advantageous this week. I mean, the ball striking numbers are outrageous, right? Gaining over a stroke per round with the approach, that's like the best number in the world. That's not just the best number in this field. That's like the best number in the entire world. Gaining off the tee in bunches. The putter has kind of been hit or miss. But remember, about a month ago, Davis Riley was gaining like 3/4 of a stroke per round with the flat stick. He goes into stretches where he goes out there, just cannot miss from 10 to 20 feet at all. Playing in the bad wave, I don't care. I have to be on Davis Riley this week. It's just somebody that I've been on for quite some time. I've said for quite some time, I think he's one of the better rookies on the tour. I've gotten in trouble fading him in the past. He's burned me a lot of times when I haven't played him, and I've just learned my lesson at this point. He'll be highly owned. There's a reason why he's highly owned, because he's a damn good player. I've learned my lesson. Maybe other people in the industry haven't learned their lesson yet with Davis Riley, because, guys, he's been chalk before. I've heard like the industry before say, oh, fade him, right? A lot of people played him on those weeks too, right? And they got paid off before. Now they want to jump off the bandwagon. I don't know. Maybe he's just a way better player than people are giving him credit for. That's what I think. Cameron Davis at $8,900, another player who's mega chalk that I can't get off of. And we'll talk about some of the strategies to differentiate. So I wanted to get to the mega chalk range before we talked about it, because Adam Hadwin's going to be like, quote unquote, a pivot play up top, right? He's going to be over 20% owned, but he'll be a quote unquote pivot play. You might see 30% plus ownership on Davis Riley, particularly in some of the higher dollar contests or the smaller field contests, we're dealing with sharper players. Cameron Davis probably going to be closer to 30% in those contests as well. And I love the play. He loves these golf courses where it's like, it's just a birdie fest. You go out there, score. He does that in bunches. He won the Rocket Mortgage Classic, played well last week at the Barracuda Championship, had a top 10 finish. I believe finished in 6th place there in Utah. And he's not dealing with fatigue, right? He didn't play at the Open Championship, kind of like Davis Riley. So just another thing that kind of boosts them in my player pool. And, outside of that, he's also in the PM wave. So I know it was mentioned before, it's not ideal, right? I think people are going to talk themselves off of both of these plays because of that. So I have them at 30% owned. I hope people just outthink themselves, go out there and in bunches go and fade this guy. I mean, I've heard so many people just say, oh, don't play Davis Riley this week. Oh, don't play Cameron Davis. Like, it's becoming mainstream now to tell people not to play the chalk, to the point where like maybe the chalk just stops becoming the chalk. Like, to think guys that we think are going to be the chalk maybe aren't going to be as chalky. I mean, just think of last week, right? That happened to a few guys up top. Like Rory McIlroy was 28% out, right? That's because he's a slapdick. Everyone wants to play him as a casual golf fan, right? Outside of that, a lot of the super chalky guys that we thought, oh, just glaringly mispriced, is going to be super highly owned, weren't. Who was super highly owned last week? Like, ridiculously, Ryan Fox was. Ryan Fox was like 22% owned. He's not a casual name. He's not one of these guys who like the models were pointing to. They were the guys like Sharps wanted to play. He was that quote unquote like pivot play that missed the cut the week before that everyone wanted to get to, that thought would be so sneaky, myself included, by the way. I thought he'd be a pretty sneaky play too. 22% owned in GPPs last week. Maybe people are getting more in tune with the sport. That's just what you have to understand about DFS. It's always an evolving community. I'm not so sure Davis Riley and Cameron Davis are going to be as mega chalky as you think, when a lot of people out there are trying to talk people off of them. And it's a lot of sharp people too. Like, I don't want to completely bash people for it, but you gotta adapt. You gotta be on your toes when it comes to DFS out here. The game changes, the meta changes. That's for damn sure. I mean, the game that we're playing right now when it comes to DFS isn't remotely similar to what it was 2.5 years ago. It's a completely different ball game at this point. Showdown especially, it's like the Wild West 2.5 years ago. Ownership was really flat. Pretty much the chalk going into the week was also chalk for round 2 Showdown. Completely different game now. Now it's box score watching. Now you have people that are actually doing analysis, looking at shots gained metrics. So the guys that do well in shots gained approach round to round are now becoming popular. That was not a thing 2 years ago. You have to understand that those same type of changes happen when it comes to this type of DFS for 4-round stuff. So maybe they won't be as shocking. Maybe they'll be 36% out. Either way, I'll have leverage to them. I'm gonna have well over 40% of both of those players. Let's talk about how do we differentiate. So I'm taking a bunch of them, obviously, right? I'm eating the chalk on a few players like a Davis Riley and Cameron Davis, which I hate doing, right? You guys know I'm like the one of the worst guys when it comes to chalk week to week. But in a week like this, when we're treating it like an NBA slate, like I said, all of this condensed ownership, we have to think a little bit differently. There's ways to differentiate. So I have a rule set. I'm not going to give you all the players, where there's a bunch of guys I have projected over 20% owned. I'm only taking 2 of them together in a lineup at most. And even 2 of them in a lineup, right, is a lot, right? But if I'm doing that, so if I end up getting all 2 in the same lineup, I have a rule set as well to go out there and play somebody that's sub 5% owned. It's a pretty simple rule, right? But by doing something like that, and I'm not going to give you all the players that I'm putting in that role because that's part of the magic, right? It's all about execution. I'm playing against you guys with GPPs too. And frankly, even in the Discord, I'm probably not telling you those names either, to be honest with you, right? I'm playing against you too. Sorry. But you can use that thought process, right? You can figure it out for yourself. It's really not that difficult. The guys that you want to group together to make sure that if you're playing them, that you're playing somebody that's low owned, right? So you go to the ownership projections. You find the guys that are like 5% owned, particularly that are in the 7K range. Like, I don't want to give away my whole process here, guys. But there's a lot of low owned gems here in the top of the 7K range, especially the ones that are in black right here. Even lower part of the 8K range that you can take that are going to be these low owned pivots that are certainly capable of going out there and succeeding this week. Oh, I see we have a bot down there in chat. I'm sorry about that, guys. Hopefully they're blocked and they can't do their thing anymore. But that's the point there, right? So if you're going to take these chalk plays, right, have a rule set. If you're hand building, obviously it's a little bit easier to try and account for, right? Going out there and it just differentiating. So if you're doing it by hand, it's not that difficult, right? You guys understand how to differentiate your lineups. But if you're doing something with 150 lineups, go out there and differentiate with a rule. That's what I'm doing. I'm playing 150 lineups. I'm not hand building them. So I'm doing it via rules, that sort of thing. And most optimizers out there should have the ability to do so. And if it doesn't have that ability, get a new optimizer. I had to tell that to a few people in my Patreon this week in the Discord that didn't have the ability to set rules. You have to be an effective DFS player, you have to have the ability to set rules when it comes to your lineup. So if you can't do that, get a new optimizer. If you're on the Patreon, I can give you plenty of suggestions, and I haven't made any of them. I can give you plenty of the other ones out there that other people sell. I'm sure they would be pretty glad that I'm sending them your way. So tell them I'm sending you your way. If you have any way to do so. Either way, I digress. Let's talk about a few other fades. Tringale and Adam Long. First off, they're not nearly the same type of player as a Davis Riley and a Cam Davis, so I think they're overpriced. More importantly, they're also in the PM wave, right? So they have that going against them. So if they're going to be inferior players, they're also going to be in that shitty wave. They're going to be fades for me, that's for sure. JT Poston is also in that wave, so you can see there's guys that I was on early in the week that, even though they're in the PM wave, I have not jumped ship on. And the main reason why is JT Poston a few weeks ago, right? Like I faded him. I was like, whatever. He's going to come back down to earth, blah, 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 blah. The approach play form has been solid for now 3 to 4 months. Like it's not just like a few month type of thing. So take a look at the last 24 measure rounds just to give you an idea here, right? So first off, JT Poston, yeah, $8,500. We're way up here. Getting 0.6 strokes per round. Look at the last 50 measured rounds. While it's not going to be quite as severe here, you can see he's still gaining in that category. Now off the tee, 0.3, it's a little bit more significant there. He's still a great gainer with the putter, but really what's been carrying him of late has been that approach play, right? Everything else has maintained, but he's really ramped it up with the approach play, and that's the most consistent stat from week to week. Like that's why we hunker down on shots gained approach. That's why for the last 5-6 years when it's come to PGA DFS, shots gained approach is like always number one in everyone's model. Like no matter who you are, right? No matter what you know about PGA DFS, you're always hunkering down on shots gained approach because it's consistent from week to week. I feel like people are getting away from that. Like people are like losing the fundamentals of PGA DFS. Like they're forgetting like, shots gained approach of late trending matters. Like people aren't using that in their modeling anymore. It's what I'm talking about. The meta with PGA DFS just changes week to week. Must be forget that like getting to the hot hand of JT Poston makes sense. Like I don't care if he's going to be 25% owned, which is exactly where he is for this week. Everybody above $8,000 is like 25% owned. I mean, Jesus Christ, what Adam Long was like 22% owned this morning. Even somebody like Cameron Tringale is over 20% owned, right? What, the 4 or 5% difference between Tringale and JT Poston, right? And you don't think I want to play Poston then? Like obviously I'm going to pivot that direction, right? Now, if you're going the AM PM wave direction, maybe you don't play Poston, right? Maybe you don't play Davis Riley or Cam Davis. I would understand that, but I'm playing 150 lineups. I don't have to be nearly as narrow with my player pool. Moving down a little bit further, we'll talk about we won't talk about the guys that are in black right there. Sorry. Nick Hardy, $8,000 I'll be getting to. Another guy that's also in the PM wave, which after this, there's not going to be many guys in the PM wave anymore. It's going to be a lot of AM guys that we're talking about. But first off, I like the scoring ability. He's from the area. He's played the golf course multiple times from my understanding. And there's some false narrative going out there that he's injured or something like that. That's just not true. He was injured about a month ago and played last week and finished in the top 15. So, I mean, nothing points to him actually being injured this week. There hasn't been a withdrawal from a practice round. There hasn't been a lack of practice on the range or anything like that. I love him, $8,000. 71% cut rate. It's one of the highest cut rates in this entire range. Now, it's not as high as somebody like a JT Poston, for example, or the guys in the 8K range. Actually, higher made cut percentage than Adam Hadwin, which is pretty eye-opening if you look at it that way. But Nick Hardy has been a constant cut maker this year. I mean, just when you take a look at his recent form, it speaks for itself. So let's go down here. Nick Hardy, made cut, 30th, 10th, 15th, another made cut. What is that? 5 straight made cuts over the last 10 weeks. Those are the type of guys that I'm willing to eat as chalk on this slate. And he's not nearly as chalky as some of the other guys, like a Poston, like a Davis or a Davis Riley, I should say. Double Davis right there got me a little bit confused. He's not nearly as chalky. So you don't got to play him in like half your lineups, right? You can take him in like 35%, probably get enough leverage there. But will be somebody in my pool. Let's go ahead and catch up on chat, see what's going on. We had a bot down there, so sorry about that, guys. I got to scroll way up here, see what's going on. Purple says, would you take Thigala over with the bump? So he's at 5 now. I would not. So if he's at 5 birdies, that would be a fade for me. I wouldn't even take the under either, right? Because I was taking over 4.5. That would just be a stay away for me. So McThunder says, I'm with you 100% on Riley and Cam. Yeah, hopefully it pays off, man. I really think that it's his time. Like, why would we jump off the train now, especially in this type of field? Gohiba says, thanks again for the brutal honesty. Proud to subscribe. Yeah, man, I think people need honesty from time to time, especially when it comes to like the numbers that they're getting. Because like you can't be BS'd out there. Like there's numbers that like make sense, right? And sure, let's say I have fee now at like whatever percentage. Let's say just like 20%, just to give like an exact number. And I have someone else at 15%. Maybe it's 15 and 20. Maybe it's the other way around, right? But it still has to add up to $50,000, right? At the end of the day, you still have to have numbers that actually make sense. Yeah, dude, it's crazy out there, man. That's websites are getting people to pay for that data, and it's just like incorrect, like from the beginning. Like they got it wrong before they even started out there. Nick Tay says thoughts on Hadley. He's in great recent form. He's playing in the morning wave, so he has that going for him too. I don't want to spill the beans too much, man. But yeah, he's coming in with some solid form. Lucas says, what do you think about this AM wave make the cut parlay? So Ju-Young Kim, stud, love it. Ryan Palmer, stud, I love it. Svensson, stud. Honestly, I like it, man. Like they're all in the AM wave, which is what you're looking for. So especially from a parlay perspective, where I'm sure the book probably isn't taking that into consideration. The books are smart, right? But they only go so deep when it comes to their analysis. So I like all those guys. I like the fact that you have Ju-Young Kim, taking him early. His outright number is atrocious, but I'm sure from the make the cut perspective, there's probably some juice still to be squeezed there from Ju-Young Kim. I like it. I wouldn't sub anyone out there, honestly. I don't like Brendan Steele this week. I'll just say that. I'm not playing him there. One of the few guys I'll let you know that I am fading. That isn't on the Patreon there, but yeah, I like that there. Catch Me Again says Tringali is getting ready to go on a winning tear. Oh, I'm sure. We've been waiting 15 years for that winning tear now. Ray Flores says thoughts on McNeely. Okay, so we'll talk about McNeely. I'm not going to tell you whether I'm playing him or not. I'll just give you the argument for both sides, okay? People on the Patreon already know the answer here because it's an emphatic answer in one direction or the other. He's $9,300. He's coming in with some decent recent form. He fits the golf course relatively well. He's playing in the morning, but he's 28% owned. It's a hard decision point, right? He's a great play. Like that's the point I'm trying to make here. Great play. Checks pretty much every box you're looking for. But he's also one of the highest owned plays on the slate. So you got to make that decision point. So if you're going to play him, you're going to play him in like half your lineups. If you're not, you're probably going to need to fade him. So that's what I'll say about him, Ray. You'll have to make that decision yourself, though. Tom T says nobody has mentioned Martin Laird this week. Yeah, he finished well last week. I was watching that Barracuda. In the last round, he was in contention too. Like if he would have birdied one of the last 3 or 4 holes, he would have won that golf tournament. And what is it? Yeah, T13, T30th. If you look at the beginning of the season, he also had a few other top 25 finishes. So yeah, I think people might be sleeping on him, Tom. He's definitely coming in with better form than people want to give him credit for. Jeff says, was there any tournament that the PM AM wave had an advantage? Absolutely. Yes. Of late, no. It seems like the guys in the PM AM are getting shafted. That's for sure, Jeff. But yes, for sure. They're definitely having golf tournaments where that's the case. Just not as many of late, right? We usually remember the things that happened over the last few months. But yeah, they're getting shafted of late. And Sway McThunder says, I'm pretty sure we just had one recently that was PM AM. I think it was the Players. I could be wrong, right? It was one of those golf tournaments where it was really wacky, where one of the days ended up getting delayed, where the PM AM ended up actually finishing their day early, and then the AM wave had to finish up on a separate day where the wind was like really bad or something like that. Those type of situations really, really, you want to be the PM AM because you just want to get your golf tournament over with. Whereas the guys that have to wait and stick around could be susceptible to worse conditions. So yeah, it happens. That's for sure. And I think it might have been the Players. I was there. So like, I'll just say when you're at a golf tournament, you're with friends, you're drinking over the weekend, things aren't always necessarily the easiest to keep track of, but I'm pretty sure it was that event that you're talking about there because I had to stay there until Tuesday. It was a shit show. I was there from Tuesday to Tuesday in Ponte Vedra Beach when I was supposed to be there from Tuesday to Sunday. It was fun. See, somebody's asking about Goddard up, so we'll talk about it now. Fair enough. Is there any Callum Taryn love? Yeah, we'll get through those questions. Callum Taryn love. I get it. I'll just say this, Graham. I get the play. He played well at PGA National too. So like I was trying to find any reason to fade him this week because he is kind of chalky. He is getting some attention. A lot of people have talked up Turan, but he likes easy golf courses and he played well at PGA National, which is one of my favorite comps. So I can't talk you off it too much. Jeff says, what do you think about players coming off of a win such as Ches? I usually fade them, to be honest. They usually get a little bit higher ownership than most. Hey, but Ches is low owned this week. So that's not the case with Ches. So if you want to play him by all means, but I'm not a big fan of his game, to be honest. Ray Flores is asking the great questions here. Goddard Chalk, seems deserving of that ownership number. Wow. Or doesn't seem deserving of that ownership number. Yeah. So I'm assuming you've seen the number on Goddard. Yeah. I don't want to tell you whether I'm playing him or not, but it's up there. Like he's playing at the PM wave, so he has that going against him too. So if that's something you're holding against players, maybe that's a red flag to hold you back from playing him. And how much do we know about him is the real question with Chris Goddard, right? Who really is he as a player? I mean, I can't answer that question for you because we don't have a big enough sample size, right? So if you're going to tell me that someone super chalky is going to be an unknown commodity, I mean, that screams red flag to me, right? It screams wait and see type of approach. So I probably gave away too much information on my stance there on Chris Goddard, but I tend to agree with you, Ray Flores. No comment on that, Cohiba. Nick Marr says, at least you don't look like death. That's a plus. Yeah, I got COVID. I haven't coughed so far, so obviously fingers crossed that it doesn't happen going forward. But we're doing pretty good. I took a couple cough drops, took some Advil. The real issue was the scratchy throat more than anything. We're holding in there. Holding in there pretty well so far. Tori J says, thoughts on Grayson Sigg. So Grayson Sigg, he's like overpriced for whatever reason. What is he like? Where's Grayson? Yeah, he's $7,200. So if he was in the AM wave, man, I would play him because he's relatively low owned. But there's a reason why he's low owned. He has not played well this season on tour. I mean, towards the beginning, he showed us a little bit of potential with a few top 30 finishes. But since then, it's been missed cut after missed cut, just disappointing performance. I mean, what do you do over the last 2 weeks? Maybe that's got to be by his higher priced, right? He's got to have done something of late. Yeah, 2 top 25 finishes. Before this run right here, he was like utter dog shit. Like I really have a hard time reconciling that with Grayson Sigg when there's guys around him that have done a lot more recently and are just better players. So for me, Grayson Sigg, like I understand it. He's starting to play well over the last few events, but I'm not sure that's sustainable going forward, to be quite honest with you. So we'll see if any other questions to catch up on. Goddard. So yeah, Goddard. Next coming of Tiger, apparently. Yeah, that's hey, he's like 20% owned, 25% owned. That's how people are treating him right now. That's for sure. And yeah, he's got to be the next coming of Tiger, right? If he's going to be 30% owned of the slate. Ryan Palmer at $7,900. I like getting there. We talked about him as a sleeper. He's just a better player than $7,900. Like when he's in form, he would be a $10,000 golfer on the slate. Now he's not in form. Number 47 in a shit field when it comes to his recent form ranking, but he's done crazier things. He's shown up at crazier events, won crazier things in the past. I'll definitely be getting to Ryan Palmer, who's in the AM wave. Jason Day, I do not recommend anybody to follow me on this play. I'm doing it though, right? Full disclosure, he's a sleeper pick for me this week. I'm playing him this week. Does that mean you have to play Jason Day? Hell no. I implore you not to because it's probably the most risky thing I'm doing this week, but I'm playing 25% of him. I'm playing a healthy amount of Jason Day in my lineups. Now, why? And he's in the PM wave, right? He's got that going against him too. Why am I making that boneheaded move? Because I legitimately think, and we saw it a few times this year, right? When he showed up at the Zozo, he showed up a few weeks after that for a few weeks. He puts out that performance in this field. I mean, that's a top 5 or a win, right? Like those were much stronger fields than what he's looking at right here. And he needs a golf course where it's all about the putting and ball striking. Like it's all about just getting onto greens and making crazy putts because he makes 20 to 25 footers in bunches when he has that thing working. Now of late, he hasn't really done anything well on approach, but outside of the approach play, he's been really good. He's gaining in all 3 categories, gaining off the tee, gaining around the green, and gaining with the putter. And if there's one thing like historically you can count on him doing, it's hitting solid iron shots. So that's why I like getting to him is I think he has a lot of potential with his shots gained. Like historically, the thing that he's the best at is what he's kind of been leaking of late. Plug that hole, and you're looking at somebody who's gaining across all 4 stat categories. And in this type of field, I mean, he can gain in bunches across all 4 categories. And really, realistically, right, he's $7,800. What do we need from him to crack the optimal? Probably a top 10, right? He's more than capable of finishing in the top 10. In fact, in the last field of this strength, what was he, like $10,000 exactly? He was like 15% owned or something like that, ended up withdrawing from the event. Now, that's probably why he's $7,800. That's probably why no one wants to play him this week. But I'm a madman. Crazier things have happened in the past. And if Jason Day ends up cracking the slate, I mean, like, you have to have him. You're absolutely going to have him at $7,800. I can guarantee you. And he's like 3-4 times less owned than somebody like an Adam Svensson. He's a 3-4, actually maybe 5-6 times less owned than somebody like a Chris Goddard, depending on what contest you're going to be in. former #1 player in the world, by the way. Somebody who's going to be in the World Golf Hall of Fame at some point of his career, by the way, in Jason Day. Must people forget that at this point? Let's see. We got Sway McThunder in their chat. Let's see what's going on. He says, I love Goddard personally, but there would be better spots to attack him. I am in 100% agreement with you. Nick Mars says, when did Day play last? Honestly, I don't even know. I honestly don't even know. Let's see. He last played at the Travelers. He missed the cut at the Travelers. Or did he withdraw there? He may have withdrawn there. That actually might be a typo on my end, but he played at the Memorial and finished 31st. It's pretty good. 55th at the PGA, 51st at the Byron Nelson. It was right before that where he put up a few more. He was like first round leader at one event, if you guys remember, like the Wells Fargo, right? He was like winning through the first 2 rounds. So if you look before that, the form actually does get a little bit better for Jason Day. But yeah, hasn't played much golf. So who knows what type of form he's in, right? For all we know, he could be striping the golf ball. Like he could go out there and look like he did at the Wells Fargo, and everyone's just going to be slapping themselves because he could have I mean, if he does what he did at the Wells Fargo, it's like a 6-shot lead in this field, right? So it'll be interesting, that's for sure. Somebody Thunder says, I can tell you when he WD'd last. Yeah, me too, that's for sure. Ewan says, Day, decent value. I agree with you. And Tom T says, how about Duffner at $6,200? He tied Finau here with a T28. Ooh. So the prize picks people tend to agree with you there. They also have Jason Duffner in the field, and they have him in a couple of whatever you call like matchups, pretty better matchups. I've seen him on a few sports books and matchups. Underdog, I believe, also has him in a matchup. They seem to really like Jason Duffner this week. He's in the AM wave, but like his form is dreadful, right? I mean, like even over the last few weeks, I know he's played. Where's he at? He made the cut, but he finished 69th, 27th at the Barbasol. Okay, whatever. But before that, it was like 7 or 8 straight missed cuts. So I know he's probably a lot more liable to make the cut this week because of the strength of field, isn't dealing with nearly as much field strength. But I'm worried about that, Tom. I'm worried that he's just washed. I don't use that word very much when it comes to athletes, but he seems washed at this point, just like way behind his prime. And I don't know who you're talking about, Cohiba. Who you McNeely? I have no idea who you're talking about, boss man. You'll have to clarify that. You might just be rambling. I have no idea, but I'm going to continue on with my player pool here. So we got Adam Svensson at $7,600. He's in the AM wave, obviously going to be extremely chalky. I think everyone and their grandmother has talked up him this week, and also somebody who's been bet by just about every single person on Twitter. And usually I call people slapdicks that play players like that are going to be super highly owned. But like I told you, I'm treating this like an NBA slate. He's one of those players that's grouped in with that pool where if I'm only taking 2 of the quote unquote chalk plays in the same lineup, I'm also mixing in somebody that's going to be relatively low owned. So he's in that same group of players. Like I said, there's like 8 to 10 of them in that group I made on my optimizer. And AM Wave, you got to like that. He's one of the first players off. Somebody I also bet for first round leader this week. And I've bet outright. He loves bent grass. And of late, it's really been the putter that's carrying him, but it's been on bent grass for all of these events. And it makes sense. Like in the past, he has always played well on bent grass. We know he's a solid ball striker. He's going to gain off the tee and on approach. And if he does that here, his floor is like a top 20 finish, right? Like if he's going to gain in both ball striking categories, like he's pretty much done for the entire year. He's been one of the most reliable players in both categories, at least of the rookies. He's been top 5 in both categories every single week for all the rookies. And now he's putting like an absolute banshee. Like sign me up, right? That's a piece of chalk that I'm going to be willing to eat. Wyndham Clark and Austin Smotherman are going to be pivot plays in the PM wave. A lot of people won't be playing them because of their positioning with the quote unquote draw, right? Obviously the AM PM is going to be advantageous, but you got to take shots in some of these guys. So I'm not going to talk myself completely off of them. I do prefer some of the guys in the 7K range that are playing in the morning. So obviously over here on the left, you can see Pans in the morning. Same thing with Higo. So a lot of those type of players are in my player pool as well. But I was on Wyndham Clark early. Same thing with Austin Smotherman. I have not jumped ship on those two. Both high upside players, particularly Smotherman, who just makes a ton of birdies. One of the highest birdie or better percentage players on the PGA Tour. So certainly somebody I'm getting to. Wyndham Clark at $7,500. Also going to be getting there a bent grass specialist. So kind of like an Adam Svensson. You can see he's getting 0.55 shots per round on bent grass, which he's a great putter to begin with, but that's one of the better splits you're going to find on the PGA Tour. Ji Kim, a no-brainer. He's almost a free square at $7,300. I'm not sure he's going to be as chalky as some people expect. Like, I think he's going to be between 15 and 20% owned, something in that range, maybe a little bit higher in some of the higher dollar contests. Now, if you're in like a small field, really high dollar GPP, like 555 is 777 or something like that, Ji Kim might be 40% owned. If you're playing in the the Fantasy World Golf Championships this week that are going on, right, where like all the sharps are playing in, somebody like Ji Kim might be like 60% owned, something like that in those contests. But when you're playing in a contest that has absolute slappies in it that don't really know who they're taking, they just know guys like Tiger Woods, they know Tony Finau, they're going to play Hideki, they know who Hideki is, right? He won the Masters, they're not going to play Ji Kim. So he's going to be relatively high owned, but he's not going to be like 35, 40% owned. He's not going to be ridiculous chalk. And he's the number 40 ranked player in the world. He was at 18-1 to win this golf tournament early in the week. I believe he's like 22 or 24-1 right now, depending on what sportsbook you're looking at. He's an absolute stud. I don't think you have to avoid him. And like I said, he's one of these chalky plays, right? That's going to be grouped in with some of those other chalky guys I'm taking, where if I'm taking one or two of them in a lineup, I'm forcing myself to take a pivot. So I'm not all that worried about the ownership. There's ways to differentiate yourself. Moving down further, we got Tom Hoge, who we got to talk about. My boy LSU Nick was talking about him before, but he's in the AM wave, an absolute stud early in the year, but now of late has sucked. I mean, let's just look at this. It's an absolute beauty here, right? Missed cut. Top 10, top 17, though. That tells you everything you need to know about Tom Hoge. He's a boomer bust type of player. And in this type of field, if he was coming in with form, he'd be like $9,000. It'd be $10,000 if he had the form that he had during the fall swing. Obviously, won at Pebble Beach, playing in the advantageous wave. That just seems like a Tom Hoge type of course. Positional. It's got water in play, so his driving accuracy should be relatively useful around this place. And he's just got to find the irons. Like, they've been decent of late, but they've got to be great for Tom Hoge. Like, early in the year, he was getting over a stroke per round with the approach play over the last 24 rounds. We were looking at it, checking on that rolling report week to week, and he would be top 5 in almost every single field that he was in when it came to the approach play. He's got to get back to that. So he has a clear avenue to success. That is to find that iron play that was there before. We'll have to see if he's able to do so. The scratchy throat is starting to catch up to me, guys. So we got about 10 minutes left with this live stream. So if you do have any questions, make sure to go ahead and throw them down in chat right now. But we're going to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to get on the move with some of the things here. So we'll talk about some of the other plays here. Kind of like the top of the 7K range. I am favoring the guys playing in the morning. So a few of those players, just to give you an idea of who's in the morning, not necessarily who I'm playing. Stuart Sink, Bo Hosser's in the morning. Same thing with Hickok, Schwab, Nick Taylor. Danny Willett is in the morning wave. Hoge, who we talked about. Tyler Duncan is in the morning. You've got James Hahn down here. Brendan Matthews, who somebody talked about before. So he's in the morning wave. You like to see that. And Bryce Garnett. All of those guys are going to have maybe a stroke and a half advantage over some of the other players. And I think if you're trying to take anybody in the bottom of the 7K range and like you're trying to split hairs, that should be your main differentiator. But on top of that, we're looking for guys that can get it done with the approach play, right? So a couple good approach players. Tyler Duncan checks that box emphatically. Hayden Buckley's been a pretty solid approach player this year. Nick Taylor, we know him historically to be a pretty solid approach player. Matthias Schwab, pretty good approach player. Let's see. Something to know about Caleb Turan. I know somebody asked about him before. He is in the PM wave. So that's something that he kind of has working against him. Moving down to the 6K, we do have Justin Lauer. He's in the PM wave, but I will still be playing him. He's just a better player than his peers. Like, this guy just makes cuts in bunches. And if you take a look at his recent form, he does have a few slip-ups on the record of late. But before that, it was just made cut after made cut. You can see top 20 finish, top 10 finish at the Barbasol. A few missed cuts here. You can see 2 of them over his last, 7 starts, whatever it was over the last 10 weeks. Before that, it was like another 7 to 8 straight made cuts. Like, this guy's made cut percentage is one of the highest on tour when it comes to rookies. So Justin Lauer, I like that fact. I like the fact that he's also not super highly owned. Like, you'd expect somebody who's number 14 in total mono ranking to probably be garnering some attention this week, and I have him at like 5% projected owned. So He's not like one of the pieces of chalk here in the quote unquote PM wave that I'm worried about getting to. He's relatively low owned guy that we don't have to worry about ownership too much with there. Doc Redman, I talked about. I love him, especially now that he's in the AM wave. He likes himself a positional golf course. Not the longest player, but sure, he can hit some fairways. Solid approach player, also gains in bunches on the greens. And though bent grass isn't his favorite surface, you can see he's still right around a neutral in that category. So hopefully he can go out there, make a few putts this week like he was able to do over there in Ponte Vedra Beach for the players. Wouldn't suck because he's super cheap. He's actually one of the cheapest players that I'm getting to in my player pool. I just don't see a need to go down to the bottom of the sixes. So let's talk about it, right? Like the names down here are dreadful to say the very least, down here at $6,000, except for Todd Potter Jr., right? Obviously catch me if you can. Not going to talk crap about my boy Ted Potter Jr., but moving up a little bit further, right? Like Jason Duffner, right? Like when he's $6,200 and he's like the best name in this range, you know it's slim pickings at the very best. But a few names that stick out. Now, I'm not playing any of these. I will say this, but they stick out. Now, if you really wanted to take any shots down here, who I, in theory, would take shots on? Sung Yul No, somebody like Sung Kang would make a little bit of sense. Chris Stroud hasn't been the worst play. Cole Hammer, I've heard talked up quite a bit this week. Grayson Murray, probably not the worst play. Brian Stewart, probably not the worst play at $6,600. And I hate Brian Stewart, by the way. He's like my least favorite player on the PGA Tour, and I'm saying that about him. David Lingmerth, probably not the worst idea at $6,500. Ryan Moore, probably not the worst idea. Peter Malnati, probably not the worst idea. Just it's a lot of AM guys that were listed off right there, and a lot of guys that have upside. Like we've seen them finish in the top 10 before, right? And I know it's a weak field, right? We're not going to have to worry about people stealing spots from the top 10. Like if you go out there and you have a solid week, shoot someone like 15 under par or better, you're at the very least finishing top 10 here. I mean, 15 under won this last year, right? Obviously 21 under par, 19 under par, won it the first 2 years. But 15 under par won it last year. These are the type of players that can get there. Now, do we think they have a super realistic chance of doing so? Probably not, right? There's a reason why Peter Malnati is $6,800. He's extremely volatile. I also throw Austin Cook in there. Now, he's a PM wave guy, so I don't really like that about Austin Cook, but I've heard his name thrown around. Vaughn Taylor, also heard him thrown around in a few circles. He always grades out well from the shots gained perspective. Let's see. Richie Werwensky, right? He finished, was it top 3 in this event a few years ago? So maybe he likes the golf course. Parboil Jean, one of the better ball strikers you're going to find on the PGA Tour. So it's $6,300, maybe not the worst idea there. And that's probably it for pure flyer plays, guys. Like you don't want to go crazy down here. Take guys like a Kevin Stadler, a Derek Lamely, whoever that is. I have no idea who that is. Tommy Two Gloves. You can get frisky and play him if you want to. I won't be. But yeah, the names down here are dreadful to say the least. I mean, Nick Watney, I guess Wesley Bryan. Like they're not the worst names in human history, but I just have no interest in playing those guys this week. There's other guys you can get to differentiate your lineups. Let's go ahead and catch up on chat. I can see that there was obviously a bot down there. So got to scroll up here a little bit. Sorry about that, boys. I don't know why the bots are invading the channel. I guess when you get over 2,000 subs, they decide to just spam your chats or whatever. It is what it is. Everyday Thing says, so Day or Poston if you only wanted one PM guy between the two. Ooh, because one's chalk and one's a pivot play. Man, it depends on the rest of your pool. But assuming that you're probably taking some chalk there, let's go with Jason Day. Now, if you're differentiating with the rest of your spots, maybe take JT Poston, but it's kind of dependent on the rest of your build, to be honest. Ray Flores asked about Fratelli. He's AM wave. I like it. He's also been in some pretty solid form. Roiba says Buckley. He's been in good ball striking form. I won't be there myself, but I've seen a few people throw his name around. Duffner, I'm not on myself, to be honest. Nick Marr says, to be fair, he missed like 50% of those cuts on the number. Yeah, exactly with Hoagie. I guess I should have mentioned this. I mentioned it during the value picks video. So, people kind of got a point with this. But his shots gain metrics aren't horrible. Right? He's gaining on approach still off the tee. He's losing a quarter of a stroke per round. He's just a slight loser with the putter over the last 50 measured rounds, which again includes a lot of these missed cuts. I'm assuming you're talking about Tom Hoagie, right? Like he's a slight loser with the putter, slight loser around the green, and gainer with the ball striking stats. Like he hasn't been great, but like you're saying, like it hasn't been bad. He's missing cuts on the number. Like it's far from the worst thing. And like we've seen him come back. Like we've been rooting him on to make some cuts of late. I know me and you play him quite often. it hasn't been as bad as it looks. That's for sure. Wavy says, my favorite Luke, like, subscribe, and share. I couldn't said it better myself, Wavy. Hopefully you're doing well here. Win says Tringali ownership. You're going to have to check out my Patreon page to get that, to be honest, boss. Cannot give that to you. Actually, yes, I can. I gave it during my video today. So let me just look it up. He's like 20% out. He's right around 20%. I'm only giving you that one, by the way. I would say go out, check out my Patreon. I'm not being a smart ass because I gave him on the fades video today. So I gave that ownership number. But for everyone else, you are going to have to check out the Patreon. I am going to make that a rule here. Buddy says, dig in some Brandon Matthews this week. Good luck all. Yeah, I like him too. Solid ball striker. Randy says, I cannot find Joo Young Kim on my betting site. Did he withdraw? It's a Joo Young. JOOHYUNG Kim. They may put him under Tom Kim. I don't know. That's his American nickname. Jack Fisher says, Ryan Palmer and Brendan Steele for first round leader, both AMT times. I like Ryan Palmer maybe a little bit more, but I could see both arguments. It's important that both are playing in the morning. Big Tech says, can't you make it where only subs can be in the chat? I can, yeah. So I'm going to do that going forward. But they'll subscribe. Like, they're bots. They'll do that. They'll subscribe to the channel anyway. So unfortunately, they'll figure it out. Nick Marr says Marty Fish is in the AM wave. Yeah, guys, if you guys didn't know this, by the way, Marty Fish, he's in the field. He's obviously a tennis legend, whatnot. Yeah, Marty Fish, LOL. Yeah, it's going to be funny to see him playing. I actually think he might play well. Like, he's not going to make the cut, guys, but he might shoot like 3-4 over, which, like, for an amateur in a PGA Tour event, that's awesome. Like, if Marty Fish goes out there and shoots like 3 over tomorrow, like, good for him. Like, that's really, I mean, that's impressive is what I'll say. That's impressive. People give him shit, be like, oh, why is Marty Fish in the field? You wouldn't shoot 3 over if you played in a golf event. That's for sure. I know sure shit I wouldn't. Nick Tay says, really appreciate you responding to my comment. I subbed earlier this week. Yeah, absolutely, man. I try to get back to as many people as humanly possible. I'm glad that you're enjoying the content. And Big Tech says, damn, I didn't know they could sub too. Yeah, they're bots. They're going to be pretty good about it. They'll just sub to the channel because I believe you only have to be subbed for like a minute or something like that before you can go ahead and comment. It's not ideal for sure. That's all we got, guys. My throat is definitely starting to catch up with me. Hopefully that was informative. You guys feel a little bit more prepared for this slate than you did before. But we are going to be doing showdown content for rounds 2 through 4 as per usual. I'm expecting to feel okay. Like, I've gone COVID a few times before. Like, this ain't my first rodeo with COVID at this point. I was pretty okay the first few times. So as long as we're feeling good, we'll have a regular slate of content out. I imagine that to be the case. Also, prize picks content for rounds 2 through 4. If you're looking for access to all of my projections, I'll remind you, check out the Patreon page. A link is down in the description of the video. It's $10 a month. You get access to my Draftkings projections, my Patreon stuff for prize picks, the Discord server, all that sort of fun stuff that we have to offer. So if you're looking for one-on-one coaching, all that information, that's how you go out and get it. But best of luck with all of your lineups, boys. It should be a fun week, and let's get this cash.